You can count on. KOAT Action 7 News at 4 starts right now.
Hear that thunder? We have scattered storms across New Mexico along with hail and much needed rain. Good afternoon, I'm Ron Burke, and you can see from this time-lapse clouds rolling in on this impact day. Meteorologist Kelly Franson joins us now. And Kelly, parts of the state are under a severe thunderstorm watch.
I have lost sound, but I am going to keep talking here in my living room, tracking severe weather for you today. We do have that severe thunderstorm watch that's in the bright yellow, the entire shaded area southeast New Mexico. But I do want to take you in tighter on the radar to show you we've got an active warning going on in Chavez County. Now, warnings are issued for large hail and or damaging winds. In this case, the potential is there for both. This severe thunderstorm warning as of now set to run until 4:30 p.m. So we are going to be continuing to track that. You can see that other severe thunderstorm warning just to the northwest of it. That was set to expire at 4, but they have just reissued a new severe thunderstorm warning there for that storm along Highway 285. That will now be in effect until 4:45. And this storm has a history of tennis ball size hail. So we're talking the size of the hail with these warnings. But I do want to caution you, we've also had hail accumulations happening, which means a smaller hail piling up and slicking up the road. So that is possible even outside of these warned areas. It has already been a very active day. Look at those storms firing. Santa Rosa, Tucumcari down to Fort Sumner. And yes, we are starting to see more activity around Albuquerque as well. The storms are smaller in size, but they are growing. We should get some good rain, could see some small hail, and of course, gusty winds with those showers as well. So a lot going on in the weather world. I'm going to send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Kelly, thank you. Now the latest on those fires burning in opposite parts of New Mexico. The Salt Creek fire near Shiprock is now 50% contained and has burned 422 acres. Evacuations have been lifted there. And the Three Rivers fire, burning for 1 week straight now, 23% contained, but has reached 7,000 acres. Hundreds are working on this fire, the cause of which is still unknown. Now, May also marks the start of Wildfire Awareness Month. The New Mexico Department of Agriculture is joining county leaders in asking the public and farmers to pay attention to fire restrictions and be cautious to not start accidental sparks. It's been almost 24 hours following a night of downpouring rain, intense storms, and widespread flooding in New Mexico. And today we're seeing the aftermath firsthand this monsoon season. Good afternoon. I'm Ron Burke, and we have team coverage of the impacts, widespread and personal. And here in our weather studio, we'll see if more hardships are on the way. Let's go first to meteorologist Kelly Franson. Kelly, not as many storms today, but we still have some concerns with flooding as we take live looks of Belen and Albuquerque right now.
The good news is the radar looks very different than it did yesterday, even at this time, and certainly different than it did last night. But we do still have 3 flood advisories to tell you about. A little hard to see that one in Grant County, but you can see the bigger areas, all of them notice down into southern New Mexico. So let's take you over toward Chavez County. First, those storms rolled through, prompted that flood advisory that's in effect until 5 p.m. and those storms have now turned to lighter showers as they continue to drift toward the south. Now we'll take you back over southwest and south central. You can see the storm that prompted the flood advisory just east of Silver City. That's in effect until 4:45. The storm itself also falling apart and out of that area, but a new flood advisory now right on the Sierra Dona County line right there, and that storm is still going strong. Again, the storms that prompted the flood advisories most recently are all in the southern portion of New Mexico. We've got very small isolated activity in the north, but a very different setup than yesterday because we have drier air rotating in from the north around this area of high pressure. So while there are a few storms in northern and potentially central portions of the state later on this evening, they're not expected to have the copious amounts of moisture to work with like the storms we had last night. Of course, those storms last night really caused a lot of impacts. An emergency declaration has been issued for Belen after that severe flooding.
Yeah, Kelly, and now with all the damage, the cleanup is underway. Anchor Sasha Leninger is live in Belen. Sasha, how bad is the damage there?
Ron, it's pretty extensive. The streets outside filled with mud. Many people and businesses left cleaning up. Take a look. This is Ray's Barbershop here off of North Main Street. They got flooded last night. You can see the massive amounts of mud that are still in here on the chairs, and the crews here working to clean up their floors and seeing what they can salvage. But they tell me with the inches of water that came in here, they're going to have to get rid of all of their wood floors. Now, this entire city, including this barber shop here, are left cleaning up. So take a look here at this viewer video. You can see just how much water landed in the streets. The Belen mayor says heavy rain started just before 9 o'clock last night, and then rescue efforts began, saving stuck drivers and flooding across the city. Today, it's all about the cleanup. Mud, soot, and water still at people's homes and businesses. Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales is in Belen surveying the damage right now, along with the mayor and the cabinet secretary. He says an emergency declaration has been issued for the city of Belen.
For me, a particular point of chilling effect of this flood has been when we passed through the cemetery, and when the cemetery was just flooded, and knowing that family members are going to be so saddened when they go visit their loved ones.
Now, we had confirmed with the mayor of Belen at least 3 levee breaches here in the city, which affected the entire city. The mayor says they do need to make their way to the ponds today to try and drain some of that water, because if more rain does come tonight and those ponds are still full, the city of Belen will flood yet again. Live in Belen, I'm Sasha Leninger, KOAT Action 7 News. Back to you.
Yeah, a lot of work on their hands there. This is not the first time Belen has flooded. It happened as recently as July of 2018. And coming up at 5, Sasha speaks to the mayor about what it would take to keep this from happening again. Meanwhile, New Mexico's American Red Cross chapter has set up an emergency shelter for those who need it. It's at Dennis Chavez Elementary School for those affected by the flooding. This is a safe place to stay, as well as to get the latest information on conditions. Well, even though it's a few inches of rain, it could have a huge impact on an area. As we look at video from Belen roads last night, we bring in Joe Diaz. And Joe, break down the problem with having so much rain so fast.
Yeah, it's a really complex problem all over New Mexico when you got a lot of rain throughout a short period of time. And we were setting people up for the potential for heavy rain and localized flooding for several days, really. But yesterday, we were expecting storms to drop down and form from the north. Now, this storm that formed around Rio Rancho didn't move into Rio Rancho, but collapsing storms to the north formed new ones, and they had some flooding issues for a time. Now, notice how this storm dropped through Albuquerque. It kind of weakened, and then these two cells combined, and it just blew up over the Belen area, and they did go under a flash flood warning. That means that flooding was happening. Life-threatening measures were in place where we could have some localized flooding and some flooding to some of the streams, the creeks, and the arroyos in the area. And just what a mess it was, and it finally started to slowly pull away after doing all that devastation that you just saw. Now, this is the radar estimate of how much rain fell. And look at the poor community of Belen. It was just a big bullseye over the area, where many areas picked up more than 2 inches of rain, and most of that fell in about 2 hours. And this is a community that sits in the valley, so the water flows down into the valley, and often it collects and overworks those drainage systems. And many of these low-lying areas are like flooded intersections, where you see streets and intersections where they're concrete, and that doesn't absorb into the earth, so it overwhelms the sections where the storm drains are, and it really quickly takes over the system. And you could take this kind of rain and put it over any community in New Mexico, and they would have a big problem with it in a short period of time, because unlike Kansas or Oklahoma, we are not flat. We do have terrain, and it flows to those low-lying areas, and it does create some problems. Ron?
That Belen flooding, overwhelming to use your word, Joe. A scary sight to see. And here's video from Yvonne Christina Salazar. This is Coors last month. You can see the impact of heavy water on the roads there and the effect it has on people trying to drive through it. Now, flooding is not the only water worry in Belen. The White House is awarding about $1 million in loans and grants to create a water treatment facility. Belen's thousands of residents will then be able to have water that is at required drinking standards. And we're watching all the impacts of monsoon season in New Mexico. And we ask you to stay with us on air and on the web, and download our KOT weather app so you can stay up to the moment.
From the ground to the sky, Albuquerque is still seeing the leftovers from 2 days of intense winter weather. You can see from the top of the crest and across the metro, all of those inches of snow slowly starting to melt away today. But the impacts are still here. We do have team coverage from northern New Mexico, where Shelley Leggett and Stella Sun are monitoring a new wave of winter weather. To here in the metro, where meteorologists Kelly Franson and Joe Diaz are looking ahead and tracking the storm. Good afternoon. I'm Brittany Brittany Hope. Kicking off our team coverage is Chief Meteorologist Joe Diaz. Joe, as we head into the rest of the evening and tomorrow, are we looking at more of this winter weather?
Fortunately, we're looking for improving conditions. In fact, it was very, very dangerous this morning. The Weather Service had to upgrade for a time northeastern parts of New Mexico into a rare blizzard warning. It was just terrible conditions anywhere from around to the west of Clayton. They had like 3 and 4 foot snow drifts because of the heavy winds that were pushing snow drifts around. They had like 8 inches of snow, and it made it into feet of snow when you factor in the strong winds that were pushing in the area and zero visibility. So it was a very dangerous situation, but that's been downgraded now to a winter weather advisory. What does that mean? Well, there'll still be some snow. There'll still be some freezing fog. There'll still be some low visibility, 1 to 3 inches of snow, and that will be blowing around as well. Now, as we go in and look, the encouraging sign here is you see the blue, that's snow, but you see the green over here. Finally, some warmer air is working into this, so the concern for blizzard-like conditions has gone down, but there's still some dangerous weather to contend with. Look at the visibility around a mile in Santa Rosa. It looks like that will be a pretty common sight as we get into the evening hours, especially as it turns into freezing fog. Above freezing throughout many areas now, but it will be lowering again. Here's that storm system pulling out, and on the backside of it, check out what the winds are going to do as we get into the evening. Look at this strong winds, and realize Clayton has like 8 inches of snow on the ground, so there'll be snow and blowing snow continuing from Clayton, Tucumcari down into Clovis, and then the storm finally starts to exit as we get into the first part of the day tomorrow. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Joe. And while the skies are settling here in Albuquerque, as we head north, that storm is still surging. KOAT's newest reporter, Stella Sun, is live for us in Las Vegas, New Mexico. Stella, you are in the elements. How are the conditions changing there right now?
Hey, good evening, Brittany. We're live from the city of Las Vegas, and right behind me is I-25. Now, there is a bit of a lull from those blizzard-like conditions right now, but that certainly wasn't the case earlier today. Now, we left Albuquerque and hit the road just after noon, and by the time we arrived to Santa Fe, so around 1 p.m. is when we really started to see that snow fall down. We were going at some points 15 to even 20 miles below the speed limit, simply because the visibility was so terrible. Maybe a quarter mile ahead is what we could see ahead of us, and way too many cars were just zooming past us. Now, on our drive, we did also see a couple of semi-trucks pulled over on the side of the road with their hazard lights on, as well as some other cars pulled over. We can't confirm whether that was from the winter storm today or from the yesterday or even the day before. Now, coming up at 4:30, our Shelley Leggett will break down those road conditions here in Las Vegas tonight and into tomorrow. For now, reporting live in Las Vegas, Stella Sun, KOAT Action 7 News.
All right, thanks, Stella. Stay safe. Again, a lot of sharp changes in New Mexico and in the metro. You can see the snow fell far and wide in these local images we have for you. Meteorologist Kelly Franson continues our live team coverage tonight with how the seemingly heavy precipitation affected our drought outlook. Hey, Kelly.
I am right outside the KOAT studio where most of our snow has melted. You can see just a little bit lingering here. But, you know, even if this were fresh snow, just sticking a ruler in it doesn't tell us much at all about how much water is in that snow and how much it's helping us out. So time for a little bit of show and tell. I took apart my rain gauge last night and put 10 inches of snow in it just so you could see what it looks like. So that's approximately 10 inches of snow. Now, you often hear a rule of thumb, 10 inches of snow would equal 1 inch of rain. Well, this is the inner portion of that rain gauge. So if the 10-to-1 rule were accurate in this situation, I would melt this down and funnel it in here, and it would be 1 inch of rain. But turns out 10-to-1 is not really a good rule of thumb because the snow can really vary in terms of how much liquid it's holding. A really wet snow might be 5-to-1, while a super dry, powdery snow might be 30-to-1. So how do we tell what sort of a snow ratio we had? Well, take a look at the numbers from the Sunport. The National Weather Service reported 4 inches of snow for Monday and Tuesday. Meanwhile, the liquid equivalent of that was just a little under 1/4 of an inch. So that gives us a snow to liquid ratio of about 18:1. Now, any precipitation is welcome when we're in a drought, but picking up just under 1/4 of an inch of rain did not do much for us here in Albuquerque in terms of our rain deficit. We're still left about 2 3/4 of an inch below normal. That's almost 3 of these tubes that we would need of rain. Now, coming up at 5, we'll be taking a look at the liquid equivalent of what some cities across New Mexico picked up out of this winter storm and how much more rain we need.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Cool little science lesson there for us, right? All right, so take a look here. You can see all those changes Kelly was talking about right here in this time lapse from our Sandia Crest cam. So check it out. At first you saw it was frozen over when suddenly some of that ice melts away and leaves with icicles. And then check it out. You get those bright skies with the clouds underneath, that big mass of them hastily moving across the city. That is that storm. And we do have some good news tonight, though. All of the snow is now helping quench the Luna fire. The snow helped bring moisture, keeping the flames from spreading. It is now 35% contained and expected to be fully contained by November 10th. And more good news, no structures are being threatened. Well, take a look here at Taos Ski Valley, racking up a ton of snow these last few days right up the mountain there. Well, check out the team still working hard to get the resort ready for the season with over 17 inches of snow, a total whiteout. Some other notable accumulation too. Ski Santa Fe picking up 6 inches and Angel Fire gathering 7.
All 3 of them.
It's been a day of extremely threatening winds. You can see as gusts toppled over this massive tree in Red River. But it's not just wind. There's freezing temperatures and even snow. Take a look at Red River, hit hard today with all 3. Our team warned you and is tracking each of these impacts, not just here, but across New Mexico. Chief Meteorologist Joe Diaz joins us now. And Joe, we have photos of all this wind damage from across the strait. Trees fully just pulled out of the ground from Farmington to Chama to Red River. Who got hit the hardest?
Yeah, well, pretty much all those areas you mentioned got hit hard, but there is widespread wind damage, John, throughout a broad area of New Mexico. And we've been telling you about this for several days, how a powerful front would be moving through, pushed by very strong jet stream winds with the limited moisture and plenty of wind. In fact, we were warning you last night, this is such an unusual event for us, that the strong winds would actually come up in the morning as the front rolled on through. And check this out. This is at 6:11 in the morning. We had a snow squall warning in the state. This was for the Santa Fe area, and that's like a severe thunderstorm warning, but the deal is there's going to be a line of rain and then wind and then snow, and the winds were so strong that the airport recorded a 70-mile-per-hour wind gust doing a lot of damage around 6:11 in the morning. You can see it quickly went from rain to hail to snow throughout the area. Now, you can see that line of showers and thunderstorms. That's the front itself pushing through with limited moisture here in the Albuquerque area, but we still had a gust up to 56 miles an hour. But check out the time it happened. That was 6:36 in the morning. Normally when we get the strong winds, it's in the afternoon. And notice it was a dry front that pushed through Las Vegas, but as expected, this area would be hard hit. And they had a gust of close to 90 miles an hour with lots of wind damage across that area as well. We'll show you about when this will clear out and the cold temps it will leave behind coming up in my KWT 7 weather forecast.
Joe, thank you. New Mexico Homeland Security and Emergency Management have activated their Emergency Operations Center because of the storm. And in Taos County, an emergency disaster declaration has been issued. The Red Cross is standing by while the county is stepping up an emergency shelter. We're seeing the force of winds take out power all over the state, like this photo of a downed tree in Las Vegas. Our reporter Stephanie Muniz is also north in Santa Fe, where the winds took down trees all over downtown. Stephanie?
Hey, John. Well, the winds here in Santa Fe right now are not feeling quite like what they were this morning. But here in downtown Santa Fe, they did knock down two trees at the Santa Fe Cathedral. One of them was right in front. You can see it knocked down a sign. There's poles knocked down, and you can even still see some of those tree roots that got uprooted. Now, the tree, when it fell over, it fell on its side. It didn't create a lot of damage, but it did hit one of those light posts. The arborist for the cathedral here tells us the tree was almost 56 feet tall. It's pretty hard to miss. Now, the person in charge of the landscaping and design at the church says she was shocked and surprised to hear the tree had fallen. Just days before it was taken down by this wind, it was adorned with Christmas lights.
We never thought that would happen. We were indicating how nice it looked, actually, because it really had good growth on it, and just the force of those winds was just too much to handle.
She says part of the reason the tree fell was not because it was dead, but because the roots of spruce trees are not as stable as other trees. Another factor was because there's not a lot of nature around it, so there was not a natural habitat protecting that tree. Now, I did talk to people here at the church, and they say they're definitely going to be replacing this tree. They don't know with what yet. They did say it's definitely not going to be a spruce tree. Reporting live in Santa Fe, Stephanie Muniz, KOAT Action 7 News.
Stephanie, thank you. The downed tree will be used as mulch around the church. Other pieces will be given to artists and furniture makers to give the old tree new life. The Santa Fe winds had a big impact on the airport. You can see these parked planes have been literally moved from the tramway, and a couple have been damaged, some even completely flipped over. Stephanie will have more on this coming up at 6. And it's not just power lines, trees, and planes getting knocked over, it's cars too. We know in San Miguel County near Las Vegas, cars were blown off I-25. Check out these photos in Union City where a camper and an RV were toppled over on Highway 64 because of the strong winds. And those strong winds can clearly be dangerous for drivers. And just like any stormy weather, the best thing you can do is slow down and keep your distance, as wind could push cars out of their lanes. You also never know when your car could be hit by a strong gusts, so don't take your hands off the steering wheel and keep your windows closed, as opening them will only make you more vulnerable to crosswinds. The system we are experiencing here in part is a larger storm that's happening out west. The system, fueled by an atmospheric river, broken rain, and snow records across California. You can see hurricane-force winds in Colorado blowing snow from 60 to 100 miles per hour. This weather comes at a bad time for northern New Mexicans. The Public Regulation Commission says it has gotten a number of complaints this past month, meaning key fuel is missing from heating hot water and cooking. Rio Arriba County says multiple propane deliveries have been delayed.
Just keeps on cooking. We have just hit 101 degrees. In fact, New Mexico is scorching with its hottest temperatures in 3 years. Action 7 News meteorologist Joe Diaz and Byron Morton are watching the temps for you. Joe is in the Weather Center, and Byron is outside live in the foothills getting some sun. Here's to start with Joe.
This is what we've been prepping you on, Doug, for the past several days, for more than a week now. The very extensive heat wave that's starting to build across the area. In fact, for this evening, we're under a heat advisory from Albuquerque southward and then on into southern eastern parts of the state. Now, it kicks in again tomorrow, then spreads northward into Santa Fe, Espanola, on into the Farmington area, because they're going to be near 100 degrees as well. Look at it right now. The airport in Santa Fe around 100 degrees, staying in Albuquerque, and then you see that triple-digit heat all the way across southern parts of New Mexico, and 107 currently in the Roswell area. Yes, it's 100. It has been 101. Could bounce up some more. It's a dry heat. The relative humidity 8%, and the high so far today is at 101 degree reading. Right now, you can see a triple-digit heat from Santa Fe, Rio Rancho on into the Albuquerque area. As we dig down deeper into the metro area, you can see 103, 104 in parts of the North Valley, 105 in parts of the West Mesa on into the west side of the city, and temperatures in the 90s and 100s easily over the foothills. Now, to give you some perspective, we're going to have a few days of 100 degrees or higher. 1980, we had 9 days. 1994, we had 8 days in a row. 1979, 7 days in a row. 6 in 1981 and 1958. Fortunately, we're not going to be near the record levels. Let's go outside right now to Byron Morton, who's out in the foothills. Now, Byron, we tell people to take it easy on the hot parts of the day. I hope you're hitting the truck every now and then.
Yeah, it's air conditioned right over there, and under this mask there isn't a smile. it's a pretty big frown because of this intense heat. You talked about it being a dry heat, Joe, and that's very important, because in this type of situation where we have these super hot temperatures and the dry conditions, the humidity is very low, our body can use anywhere from 2 to 3 liters of water per hour. And we've got about 2 million sweat glands on our body, on our skin, and what happens is when you sweat, that sweat is of course moisture, and the dry air is able to evaporate that moisture, and once it evaporates, it cools your skin off. So that's why it's very important that it is a dry heat. It allows your body to cool off easier. If we were more humid, your body wouldn't cool off as fast because that moisture would stay on your skin. It's kind of like when you step out of a shower and you feel cooler. Well, the heat is dry, so that evaporating sweat makes you feel a little bit cooler. Another great way to escape the heat is to head to the hills, because for every 1,000 feet you go up on the mountain, you lose about 6 degrees in temperature. So up at the top of the mountain there at over 10,000 feet, the temperature is just in the 70s right now, which is much better than what we're feeling right here. But you don't only have to go to the mountain to cool down. There's an easy way to drop the temperature right where you are, 20 degrees, even when you're outside. More on that coming up in the second half hour. For now, I'm KOAT 7 weather meteorologist Byron Morton reporting for the foothills. Back to you.
That was a science class I actually understood, Byron. Thanks. He'll be back in a few minutes. For more details on this raging heat, download our KOAT app for the most accurate, up-to-date information. And, of course, stay with us on air.
The latest round of winter weather bringing freezing temperatures, more inches of snow, and dangerous conditions in between. You can see in this time lapse Albuquerque and the state getting blasted once again. Good afternoon, and thanks for being with us. I'm Kayla Norwood in for Brittany.
And I'm Ron Burke, Action 7 News, bringing you team coverage of conditions here in the metro to northern New Mexico and all the roads in between.
So right here in our weather center, where our certified most accurate team is breaking down the biggest question: what's next?
And let's start first with that latest tracking from our weather team.
Chief Meteorologist Joe Diaz is here. And Joe, we have a live look from Sky 7 now. Is there more snow on the way?
Well, you know, for some of us, there is more snow coming our way because these winter weather advisories have been expanded across a broader area of the state. Let me go ahead and show you what's happening right now. First of all, we're going to start off in the Santa Fe Plaza. This is one of the areas hit pretty hard this morning. They picked up 9 to 10 inches. Some of that is compressed since then, though, but they only got about 4 inches at the airport to the south of the plaza. Now, when we look at the Albuquerque area, about 1 to 2 inches fell. You can see with temperatures above freezing now, a lot of the snow is off the roads, but we have wet roads and dropping into the 20s overnight. We're concerned about the refreezing of roads and slick travel. 37 is where we're sitting right now. That's the highest temperature so far today. Now, over the past hour, another little wave of snow pushed across the Santa Fe area. They're in for a break right now. We had some rain and snow mixes in and around parts of Albuquerque on into Los Padillas, down into Isleta and Bosque Farms, so rain snow mixes there. Earlier there was snow from TRC, Deming, Las Cruces on into areas around Ruidoso, are now blowing snow in areas of freezing fog across the Carlsbad area, and that's going to be concern over southeastern New Mexico as well. Now, one interesting thing, a lot of these winter weather advisories and warnings will be ending at 10 o'clock tonight, but continuing Santa Fe Taos on into Las Vegas because of another wave of moisture. But be concerned about the refreezing of the roads, the areas of freezing fog, and the difficult travel. We'll have more about that next system coming up in just a bit.
Thank you, Joe. A lot to be concerned with there. As we go into another night of those cold temperatures, I want to check in with Action 7 News reporter Shelley Leggett in the Tijeras area.
Shelley, people there are concerned about how those low digits could impact road conditions.
Yeah, Kaylin, right now it's pretty cold out here. Road crews have been out all night and all afternoon clearing the roads, and a lot of that snow is being pushed off to the sides. Crews have been working around the clock since Saturday, concentrating on problem areas like bridges and the highways. They say the roads might get worse after they get better.
So right now we have a lot of slushy slushy shoulders and areas in the road that are still wet. So we do want to make sure and continue to patrol those areas and place down material so that when the temperatures do drop later on this afternoon, it doesn't cause any more ice on the roadway.
So they say as soon as the snow melts, it can and will make for some dangerous driving conditions. So you want to make sure to take it slow on the roads and watch out for any of those road crews that are out there, because they're there to clear the roads and help you out. Live in the Tijeras area, Shelley Leggett, KOAT Action 7 News. All
right, Shelley, thank you. The road's not the only danger in our state right now. Take a look here. We're following mass outages still in play in Roswell, Artesia, Carlsbad, Hobbs, Portales, Clovis, and Tucumcari. You can see Roswell still has more than 350 homes without power, but that is huge progress from the tens of thousands this morning. XL Energy says eastern New Mexico has been hit with these outages since late last night.
In Albuquerque now, crews across departments have been busy, from the police chief, airport workers to garbage collectors.
They have messages for just about everyone in the metro. Nancy Laughlin continues now with our team coverage.
Well, that's right. City crews have been really busy the past few days. They want to make sure that if you're out in this stuff, you get the help that you need, or if you see someone who needs help, that they get that as well. Right now, the roads in Albuquerque can be icy and slick. The police chief saying they have responded to multiple accidents, especially fender benders. If you're in one, he says, get off the roads ASAP.
If as quickly as possible they could flag each other into a parking lot and off the roadway, it will make it a whole lot safer for them.
APD says if it's a minor crash and no one is hurt, exchange insurance information and call 311, or you can file a police report online. As far as keeping warm, the fire chief reminding people stoves are not heaters.
One thing I want to stress to everybody is please make sure that you're not using a stove to heat your home. Make sure that you're keeping your space heaters away from combustibles, at least 3 feet away from combustibles like drapes, furniture, things like that.
He says they have been responding to a lot of fires lately. And for people who are out in the cold, the city says there are shelters and hotels available.
People do not have to stay outside in this weather.
If you see someone you think is in need of shelter, call 311. Okay, well, as for garbage collection, we're told that there were some delays today, but if your garbage wasn't picked up, the city's saying leave it out there and it will be collected tomorrow. Live in Albuquerque, I'm Nancy Laughlin, KOAT Action 7 News.
Nancy, thank you. City leaders are also advising people who are flying in and out of Albuquerque to check your flights because there are a lot of delays in other parts of the country. More on how the Sunport is trying to make that easier in a few minutes.
The city closing or delaying a ton of services today because of the weather. In fact, statewide, at one point, there were 216. So far, a lot less going into Wednesday. UNM's Los Alamos campus and WWJDC Charter School are closing tonight. Crystal Boarding School and Eunice Schools and Cuba Magistrate Court all on a delayed start tomorrow. You can find a full list on KOAT.com.
Our state's capital city has seen plenty of on and off snow since Sunday. You can see that snow falling here on your screen.
Action 7's Brandon Evans is live at the plaza in Santa Fe. Brandon, what's it like up there today?
Hey, Kaylin, yeah, the interstate coming up here from Albuquerque was fine, although we did see a number of abandoned cars on the side of the road. We're now in the city's center right here at the plaza. You can see snow piled up maybe waist deep, knee high in some areas, and it is quite beautiful, actually. And we did speak with some people around here that because the shops are actually, for the most part, open today. A lot of people just walking around, enjoying it like it was any other day. But most of those people that I spoke with, they actually live here in Santa Fe. That wasn't the case for one man that I met in town from Austin, Texas, to spend time with his daughter. And here's what happened to him.
We were on top of the mountain yesterday hiking, and then somewhere we ended up getting cell reception, and I got alerts that my flights had been canceled, but I couldn't call American Airlines till we got back down to the bottom. By the time I started calling, everything was booked, and so now we're here till Friday.
Now, while he says he's happy to get to spend more time with his daughter, he admits he's actually pretty worried because that same winter storm was also hitting his hometown of Austin. He says that his other daughter and his wife are actually there right now, and they're dealing with a frozen pipe. So he's pretty anxious to get home, but as you just heard him say, he's now stuck here until Friday. Live in Santa Fe, Brandon Evans, KOAT Action 7 News.
Yeah, the system impacting so many. Brandon, thank you. Brandon, we'll be back next hour with another live look at the weather in Santa Fe and how it's impacting people there.
The city of Jal in southeast New Mexico will open the community center as a warming shelter. City leaders there say the weather may cause electrical outages. The community center will also have electric service available for those using powered medical equipment.
The Red Cross is urging everyone to stay safe in this potentially life-threatening winter weather, and it starts inside.
Before you're going to go outside, you're going to want to wear layers. So you see today I've got something covering my head. I've got obviously gloves, and I've got multiple layers on, and that's to insulate your body.
Now, you want to limit your exposure by taking breaks and watch out for symptoms of hypothermia and frostbite, uncontrollable shaking, extreme fatigue, and parts of your body going numb. If that happens, quickly get inside. The weather putting a delay not just on regular travel, but vaccine travel too.
The Department of Health tells us there's a slowdown in our state's orders from Pfizer and because of the snow. The state is in contact with Pfizer and says it will be a brief delay, but the situation is growing more severe across the country with shipments on hold in Texas and power outages putting valuable doses in danger and making hospital workers scramble.
We were able to get these vaccines that needed to be utilized very quickly into arms and not waste them.
And some vaccine clinics like the Lincoln County Medical Center have shut down for the day, but the state says this setback should not hurt our overall effort over time.
Remember, when we are not on air, you can get the conditions in your neighborhood on our KOAT app. There you can see the radar from New Mexico's only certified most accurate weather team.
We are seeing a wild winter storm hitting New Mexico, and the snow totals are only going up.
That's right. We have live team coverage in our studio, weather center, and out in the field.
Meteorologist Kelly Franson for the very latest in the storm and your live Super Doppler 7 forecast. Kelly.
Oh, sort of seeing a mix of conditions right now. We've got sunshine for most of the metro, but as you look to the east, you still run into that snow band, that worked its way across the metro over the last hour or so. And the Sunport still catching the edge of that, reporting light snow and 28 degrees. Also, the snow squall really dropped visibility 2 miles right now being reported at the Sunport. It is likely even lower as you get over around I-40 and Tramway and continue through to Harris Canyon. Now, that's going to continue to push out, but in some cases, it's going to leave a pretty big mess. We've been fortunate around the metro without much snow sticking to roadways, but temperatures are definitely going to be falling pretty dramatically overnight. We still have a few snow showers around Santa Fe, but the more widespread snow is as you go east to Santa Rosa to Tucumcari. We've had quite a bit of snow at times down to the south, getting a bit of a gap here with just some spotty showers around Roswell, but Chavez County is now under that winter storm warning until 6 a.m. tomorrow, expecting significantly more snow down to the southeast. I'll be continuing to track that for you this evening.
All right, Kelly, thanks. We're also bringing you live ground coverage on how this winter weather is affecting the roads in the metro and your drive home.
Action 7 News anchor Shelby Cashman joins us live with some of those snow totals.
Well, hey guys, we are live here in Tijeras, and I want to show you guys what's going on. You can see it's pretty steadily coming down here, but what's kind of the saving grace right now, at least, is it's that really fluffy snow. Honestly, if you were to reach down here, I mean, it can pretty much be packed into a snowman or a snowball, depending on what you're trying to do, but drivers are really not having too much of an issue because of that. It's not really sticking on the roadways. As you can see here, it's not super slick yet. I think that's because we're not really seeing a lot of those puddles because it is this kind of big, fluffy, huge snowflakes that we're seeing. We did come to Tijeras, though, obviously, along I-40 eastbound. Visibility was pretty low, I'm not gonna lie, so people were taking it slow. We saw a lot of semis with all of their flashers on, just really taking it slow in that right lane. Just seeing a plow over here, actually, pulling up down here Main Street in Tijeras, but not really much to plow on the roads as of right now. So far in Tijeras, we're looking pretty good. Throughout the newscast, though, this evening, we're going to be taking a look maybe a little bit further west, back toward the metro, to give you guys a look at some different spots for your commute. Guys, back to you.
And we're learning more about how this weather is impacting you. Santa Fe Public Schools has canceled all evening activities, and Santa Fe Higher Education Center and Community College also closed. APS East Mountain Schools also dismissed class early. And remember, stay with us on air with our KOAT app. We're going to have the latest weather updates from our live Super Doppler team, as well as closings and road information.
Oh man, I'm sure you hear it where you are too. That wind is blowing here in New Mexico. And along with that, a powerful cold front is also moving in. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shelby Cashman on this blustery day. There are a lot of changes around the corner, and it's only September. We have live team coverage from right here in our weather center to out in the elements to what this means for our city's air quality. And on this weather alert day, this wind has been building and the clouds have been rushing in. Take a look here. This is a time lapse from our KOAT cam late this morning heading into early afternoon. Those changes came fast and furious. It almost looks like an earthquake is going on there, right? Look at the camera shaking. And you can see behind me, the situation has not changed. It is still just as windy. For more on all of these changes for us in the metro and statewide, let's get over to Chief Meteorologist Joe Diaz. Joe.
Yeah, this is what we've been preparing you for the past several days. A high wind warning in effect, not just in the afternoon hours, but through the evening and overnight. Now, these winds are hideously strong right now, sustained, meaning out of the east constantly 45 miles an hour, gusting to 56 miles an hour. Easily could bring down some trees and power lines throughout the region. Best thing to do is stay inside. Often we get in a situation where these winds come down during the evening. That won't be the case with this particular event. You can see that we have winds gusts to 56 miles an hour in Albuquerque, 59-mile-per-hour wind gusts throughout the airport in Santa Fe. And as we look at the forecast, it's going to be strong winds. When you see sustained winds in the upper 30-mile-per-hour range, easily gusting 50 to 60 miles an hour all evening long on into the overnight hours. That's why we have high wind warnings in effect till 6 o'clock in the morning throughout Santa Fe, Albuquerque, Clayton, Tucumcari, and Clovis, and gusting to 50 from Raton down into Santa Fe. Best thing to do is to stay inside. Then there's the snow element. It will be picking up tonight. 1 to 3 inches of snow from Los Alamos on into Angel Fire and Taos. This would be the earliest ever recorded for many of these areas, and 3 to 6 inches Chama on into Red River, where they're under a winter storm warning. Heavier certainly in the mountains. And in the warm part of the storm, we have a severe thunderstorm warning in effect. And folks, it's moving toward Alamogordo, so get inside, get away from windows, and look at this hail core. There you see it. It looks like easily quarter-size hail, even I would say ping-pong-size hail, now starting to work from Holloman Air Force Base to areas on the southern side of Alamogordo. So get inside and take cover from that particular storm. Meanwhile, we'll go out to the elements now with Byron Morton. Byron, just how bad is it where you are right now?
Hey there, Joe. It is really horrendous. I am right here at I-40 and Tramway, right at the mouth of the canyon, and this is where the winds are the strongest because the winds come racing right out of the canyon there. I brought my testy little wind meter here and already have seen the winds sustained upwards of 45 miles per hour. They definitely come in some strong gusts, and the reason I have a mask on right now, hold on just a second, sorry. The reason I have a mask on right now is because of the dust and the rocks, the pebbles that are blowing into my face. We've got winds right now up to 40+ miles per hour sustained, with the gusts a lot stronger than that. So what I would advise is to avoid this area, and if you are driving along Tramway, just keep in mind that those crosswinds are going to be very strong near the gaps, places like Lomas, and also right here along I-40 and over towards Central, because it's those crosswinds that can really mess you up when you're driving. So just be very careful and avoid this area if possible. I'm reporting live from the mouth of the canyon. Byron Morton, KOAT7 Weather. Back to you.
No joke out there, Byron. Thank you. And with wind comes a disruption of our state's power lines. PNM so far is listing hundreds of power outages in and around the metro. We do not know yet how many of these are caused by the wind, but hundreds of customers are affected. And beyond that, a big outage at Pajarito Ski Hill with a potential for a fire hazard there. And the city has just issued a health alert because of all the blowing dust outside. You saw that with Byron. People with respiratory conditions should limit all outdoor activity. This is in effect through 6 a.m. tomorrow. But Nancy Laughlin found out how it's impacting us all and what we can all do to make it a little bit more tolerable.
I spoke with KOAT's Dr. Barry Ramo about this and an environmental health expert, and both say if you don't have to go outside, stay in.
It is crazy weather. It is a great day to stay inside. We have a lot of fires throughout the West, especially in California.
Matt Campen is with the UNM School of Pharmacy and specializes in environmental health. He says with the dust, wind, pollen, and smoke from fires in other states, the air right now is really nasty.
Our particulate levels are quite high. They're in exceedance, I believe, based on the forecast that we're seeing. So in exceedance means it is dangerous for a lot of sensitive people.
KOAT's Dr. Barry Ramos says this stuff is bad for people with asthma and other respiratory issues, and that's not all.
If you have heart disease or heart failure, you really don't want to be outside.
Even if you think you're okay being out in this, you may discover not so much, with irritation in your nose or the back of your throat.
Don't exercise outside. There's a real danger of doing that, even if you're healthy. It doesn't make a lot of sense to take your run at 6:30 in the morning when you can't even see the mountains.
With all this mess out in the air, it can even have an impact on your health when you're inside. So coming up at 5, we're going to have some health tips when you're indoors as well. Nancy Laughlin, KOAT Action 7 News.
And both doctors say if you do have to step outside, your COVID mask is actually a good protector. From air quality to wind, remember, we are watching all of this for you on air and on the web. Be sure to download our KOAT app for all the latest on the temperatures and where this storm is. Go has nearly half a dozen fires burning throughout the state. Take a look at this video here. 2 of the largest are filling Santa Fe with smoke as hundreds of firefighters are working to contain the Cajo and Medio fire while staying socially distanced. We have had a crew all day on the ground just north of Santa Fe. Action 7 News reporter Brittany Hope tells us why firefighters say the Medio fire is putting up a fight.
You can see it happening here right now. The winds are changing this afternoon, and that is going to be the big challenge for firefighters as we head into tonight. I want to give you a look right now at the different smoke plumes we have in these mountains. The big problem is that a lot of these are too dangerous for firefighters to fight on foot. That's why we're watching them battle the flames from the sky. Check it out. All day, these specialized helicopters have been dropping water onto those problem spots. Those air crews are getting that water from the Nambi Reservoir. As of tonight, the Medio fire is burning over 2,700 acres and is 18% contained. That's a huge deal. Yesterday, we only saw 5% containment. Crews tell me those planes are to thank.
1,500 gallons coming at you at once, it can do a lot for this fire. Buys firefighters some time. It's not going to put it out, but it's going to allow those crews that are working in there, trying to connect that line together, gives them a little bit of a safety edge.
As you can see, NM 592 and Pacheco Canyon Road are closed here. The people who live behind these signs are ready to evacuate if they need to, but these fire crews and those trucks tell us their homes should be fine. Here north of Santa Fe, Brittany Hope, KOAT Action 7 News.
And there are over 250 people fighting the Medio fire tonight. Brittany's going to be back at 5 o'clock to tell us what their plan is to get more containment going into the rest of the week. And Ski Santa Fe may be closed, but they are working to stay safe from the Medio fire. The resort has been working with the Forest Service and is optimistic that the risk won't be too intense, but has still put all of their snow guns around the resort to protect the buildings. All 33 are ready to spray at around 1,000 gallons a minute. The resort says they are thankful for all of the help so far to protect the resort. We are also tracking a new fire burning in Socorro County. The East Well fire is just east of I-25 near Clonch, New Mexico. This has burned nearly 650 acres. We do know that lightning caused this one, and the fire is not near any homes though right now. Bernalillo County Fire will be providing rescue and medical support to firefighters on the front lines. BCFD is also helping in fighting the Medio fire.
Happening now, Hurricane Dorian, a monster Category 4 storm still battering the Bahamas. At least 5 are dead in the Bahamas.
Winds there are blowing out of control as millions prepare for what many are calling a catastrophic hurricane. And we are getting new video showing just how powerful Dorian is. This right here is from the island of the Bahamas. You can see floodwater and debris scattered all around this home. It's a lot of cleanup for that family once the storm passes.
Meteorologist Kelly Franson is tracking Dorian's path and impact for us. Kelly?
Is a look at the infrared satellite, so just the clouds but colored, so you can really get a good idea of where the eye or the center of the storm is and the fact that it's not moving. This is a 6-hour loop and it is still being reported as stationary, so just battering the Bahamas. Now I'm going to switch to the more classic satellite and radar. You can see some of those outer rain bands are already impacting Florida. You can also see the red, that is a hurricane warning. The pink is a hurricane watch for parts of the Georgia coastline. We'll take it to the track. At the moment it is still a Category 4 with 145-mile-an-hour wind speeds. It's expected to weaken a little as it eventually starts to move toward the northwest, brushing by the Florida coastline and eventually heading along the Georgia and Carolina coastlines. A little too close for comfort. And keep in mind, this represents where we expect the center of the storm to be. You have to look at that entire cone. Impacts will go way beyond this cone area, so parts of the U.S. coast will be dealing with deadly storm surge and hurricane force winds. Of course, a lot more coming up.
And happening now, volunteers from New Mexico are headed to the East Coast. Here's Action 7 News anchor Shelby Cashman.
Even if it doesn't make landfall, those living in the path of Dorian will need plenty of help. That's why 22 volunteers are on the ground right now from the chapter that serves New Mexico, prepared to help victims of Hurricane Dorian. That's because as many as 50,000 people in Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina may need assistance. In all, 600 volunteers from around the country, 20 emergency response vehicles, and 60 semis full of relief supplies have already been deployed. Because Dorian has already hit Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, Red Cross workers are already busy aiding families living on the Caribbean islands. Shelby Cashman, KOAT Action 7 News.
The American Red Cross is asking for public support through financial donations. You can text Dorian to 90999 to make a $10 donation. Now we want to give you a look from inside the eye of Dorian. This is from the parent organization of the National Weather Service. You can see just how massive the eye wall is. And our certified most accurate weather team is tracking Dorian. We have a live crew in Sebastian, Florida, tracking the latest evacuation orders. We'll speak with them in about 10 minutes.
A new Albuquerque restaurant has created a menu naming some of its items after phrases coined by the president, such as the immigrant, bad hombre, and no collusion.
While some think the menu's funny and in good nature, others believe it's offensive.
Action 7 News reporter Marissa Armos tells us why the owner created the menu. Marissa.
Good afternoon. I'm Ron Burke, and this final day of 2021 comes with a powerful, potentially dangerous winter storm. Our KOAT 7 team has been preparing you and tracking conditions from inside our weather center of the elements in northern New Mexico. And we're checking potentially slick roads and snow totals from Los Alamos to Rio Delso to right here in Albuquerque. Okay, let's get a look now from Taos with Chief Meteorologist Joe Diaz. Joe, this area could get the most snow.
Oh, yeah. You talk about the high mountain areas around the ski areas, Ron. They'll easily pick up more than a foot of snow. And it's going to be snow and blowing snow overnight throughout the first part of the day tomorrow. Now, the storm is behaving pretty much as we expected. Here's the warm part of the storm you see bringing much beneficial drenching rains throughout parts of southern New Mexico. Now, the more moisture is forming up over here in southern Arizona. As it hooks up with the cold air, there'll be widespread areas of snow and blowing snow over a good portion of New Mexico. First of all, there you see the wet part of the storm, meaning the rain coming down, and the snow is yet to be picking up across northern western parts of the state. But deeper we get into the evening, these winter storm warnings will be more impactful. In fact, we're looking for periods of heavy snow later on tonight to do the first part of the day tomorrow. Taos, Santa Fe, Durango, areas around Gallup and the mountains around the Silver City area. And the situation for snow and blowing snow, a little bit of rain changing into snow around Rio Delso, and areas around Cloudcroft could really get slammed with some heavy snow. Now, as we look at Santa Fe itself, at 6 o'clock tonight, they go into that winter storm warning. So 2 to 4 inches could fall in the town, blowing snow at times overnight throughout the first part of the day, with additional snow piling up throughout the higher terrain. We'll time it out for you coming up in my KOAT 7 weather forecast.
An avalanche warning is in effect for Wheeler Peak and Columbine Hondo Wilderness areas in northern New Mexico. Officials say the warning is for areas above 9,000 feet. It applies to the backcountry areas. Groom ski areas are not included in the warning.
We're expecting to see large natural avalanches happening near and above tree line and even some below tree line.
Now, Christmas snowpack is sitting on top of a layer of weaker early snow, creating conditions right for a possible avalanche. That warning runs through Sunday. The winter weather is also expected to hit Santa Fe as the New Year celebration in the plaza will be happening. And that's where Stella Sun joins us live now. Good afternoon to you, Stella.
Hey, happy New Year's Eve, Ron. We have been in and around Santa Fe Plaza since 10:30 this morning. We've been seeing that snow fall and then stop, fall and then stop. You can see there's a bit of a lull period right now. I want you to take a look at the roads behind me. You can see that the pavement is wet. We did see that snowfall and it melted. But I want you to check out the plaza here. It is all set up for the New Year's Eve celebration. Now, the organizers aren't sure how many people will show up, but in years past when it did snow, thousands of folks showed up, and that means people from all around could be driving into the city for this event. I want you to check out that 2022 sign. We are looking forward here. They have blocked off the roads around the plaza. Now, I also did have a chance to speak with state police about what folks should know as they prepare for this holiday weekend.
When it comes to winter weather, it's very important to be prepared for snow, ice, sleet, and freezing temperatures. Drivers are encouraged to avoid unnecessary travel.
Now, you definitely want to download the NM Roads app. You can check the latest road conditions and closures, and you definitely want to make sure you check it because it also has the current weather updates, and also to stay tuned here on KOAT with any updates. Reporting live from Santa Fe Plaza, I'm Stella Sun, KOAT Action 7 News. Back to you.
All right, Stella, thank you very much. Stella will join us at 5 with more updates on how conditions are looking there in Santa Fe. Meanwhile, crews are on standby for when the snow begins to fall. They'll put salt and cinder on roads all across New Mexico. They also remind drivers about being safe in these conditions. That includes having plenty of gas, washer fluid, and antifreeze before you hit the road. Go slower as it takes more time to stop on icy or snowy roads. Keep extra space between you and the car ahead. Don't use cruise control and go slow on bridges and through underpasses because they tend to freeze first. And when you see snow plows, give them space to work.
Be mindful of us out there. If you see a truck trying to get in from the shoulder or get back into the freeway, just scoot over, let us in. Our maintenance crews are out there just trying to do their best to keep the roads clear. If you give us 50 feet, we'll be able to plow and release the salt and cinders behind the trucks in a better fashion and not, cause any damage to anybody.
And they advise if you can stay home, do so.
If you don't necessarily need to be out during the winter storm or any winter weather, of course, be at home if that's where you can be. But if you do have to be out, give yourself some extra time and be prepared in case something happens and you are stranded for a small amount of time.
Before you hit the road, remember to check the current conditions at nmroads.com. And just to the north, it's disaster in Colorado. The Marshall and Middle Fork fires are causing the most destructive wildfires in state history. More than 6,000 acres are burned near Boulder with power lines as a suspected cause. More than 500 homes have been destroyed and tens of thousands have been forced to evacuate.
For those who've lost everything they had, it's not going to be easy. We will mobilize everything the state has.
No fatalities have been reported. Officials hope the expected 3 to 6 inches of snow will help. President Biden has granted an emergency disaster declaration for recovery funds. 2021 was a year of deadly weather extremes. The Southwest shivered through the coldest February in more than 3 decades. There were 21 named storms, 7 of those hurricanes.